All right, I'm just jumping on Instagram and Facebook here, so I'll be over two different cameras and two different channels of what is going on. Thought I'd jump on for this week's video regarding obviously the new rate increase that has just happened, and obviously it's jumped up 0.5%, probably a little bit more than what some people had hoped, but probably not unthought of what most people were probably predicting at the end of the day. So what's going to happen? Well, as I've always said, we can't tell you what's going to happen until it actually happens, but we can tell you what has happened in the last month from the last interest rate rise, which was 0.25%, so half of what's happened today. So since last month, we've obviously seen in the house market, it has cooled down a little bit. We're getting a lot less people to the open home. It is taking a little bit longer to sell. We're generally getting similar prices to what we were, 4 or 5 months ago. Some areas are actually getting affected worse than others. Places like North Lakes and Peachtree are still pumping along and getting the same price as what they were. Places like Bracken Ridge, there has been a couple of major price reductions on those properties. And it comes down to the amount of stock or properties coming and also that's still available. Peachtree, they're still selling, as I mentioned, in those, say, first week. Where Bracken Ridge, we're starting to see people actually take their properties off the market because they've been on the market for more than 90 days. So what happens is the same rate of properties are coming to market. That property is still on the market though, it's been on the market for 90 days, and they're no longer selling in those 1 to 2 weeks. And then there's just means that the buyers have a lot more options for them. Basically, I think it was last weekend, there was 26 open homes in Bracken Ridge. You go back 4 or 5 months, there was 4 to 5. So buyers just have a lot more choice because the properties are sticking on the market for a lot longer. What we have noticed though is those units and townhouses, they are moving still in that first 1 to 2 weeks. Obviously, if they're priced right, they'll move pretty quickly. The reason why is that they are in that price range where they're still affordable. We can buy a 3-bedroom townhouse quite big for mid-5s kind of stuff in that Castledine, Aspley area, where before, you can't buy a house in those kind of price ranges as well. So what we've also seen is a couple of our buyers that we've been working very closely with for the past couple of months. They had budget ranges of $700,000, had another one at $1 million. And the 700,000 person has now been what we call re-rated. So they've gone back to their financial broker to make sure that they can re-afford everything. Their now pre-approval is no longer 700, it's now around that 600,000 mark. So that now means that there's less buyers in that 700,000 mark. There's probably more in that 600 mark. So those lower end or the middle, can't say 600 is lower, but that middle range kind of price range, there's probably going to be a few more buyers in that area. But what that means for some of the sellers is if you were originally in that kind of price range, you're probably going to find you're going to have less and less buyers as these rates increase. So I think off the top of my head, as the average loan in Brisbane is around that 770 range, I think this new increase brings it up to about $165 per month extra on top of the $100 a month we've just had. So it is a big increase, and there's probably going to be a few shifting things happening over the next couple of months. So, it'll be very, very good to keep a track of what's actually happening in the market, which is why we do these videos. So a couple of key points for sellers. Timing is definitely key. If you're looking at selling in the next couple of months, move that as quickly as possible. Get that property on the market as quickly as possible because we know what properties are selling for right now. We don't know what's going to happen in the next 3 to 4 or 5 months time. If these interest rates keep going, there's going to be less and less buyers out there, which is going to push out that sale time, which means you just have less competition, which means a lower sale price at the end of the day. Now, the other thing is marketing. Do not go cheap on marketing now. Just because you might have lost $10,000 or $15,000 on a property doesn't mean now you should be saving $200, $300 on stuff. Not using a 3D scan to get interstate investors interested in the property is silly. Not doing nighttime photos if you can do nighttime photos. Not doing social media marketing or using a premier listing on realestate.com. It is silly to reduce the amount of marketing you put out there because the more marketing you get, the more eyeballs we're going to have for your property, which means we're going to have a better chance of getting you that record or a very good solid price. But also, you're not going to be sitting on the market like everyone else is. We're starting to see too many agents not do as much marketing, and they are the ones that are sitting on the market for 90 days plus, getting those big price reductions. Also picking an agent with the right process. Interview a couple of different agents, see what processes they have in place. A lot of them are just fly off the wall kind of things. Do they do auctions? Do they have a different system in place? But make sure they have a really good process and support team to be able to get through it, because these are going to be interesting couple of months ahead. Now, if you're a buyer listening to this, because we've got a few buyers on my newsletter and obviously Facebook, go and speak to your broker now. Find out if anything has changed for your lending requirements. The last thing I would want to hear is someone who has gone to make an offer on their dream home, they get it, and then all of a sudden the bank has reassessed them and they can no longer afford that property. So if you do need a broker, yell out. Alicia Scappen is my broker. I've used her for all of my properties and all my refinancing. Absolutely amazing. We've just refinanced just before these interest rate things, so we're quite lucky for a good couple of years, going to be solid where we are. But if you're interested in getting a bit of information about that, I'll put some information for Alicia down here. But hey, as always, if you've got any questions, yell out. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.